Welcome back, everybody, to Attract and Stand Out Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Darlene Hawley. This year's summit is all about building a profitable personal brand and business that allows you to authentically show up and connect with your audience. I'm so excited to be featuring so many amazing businesswomen and their powerful stories and sharing them with you. Today, I'm interviewing one of my favorite ladies, Dr. Alisha Wilkins, and I'm so excited to introduce you guys to her because she embodies everything that I can think of for bringing women together and having that connection and collaboration with women to grow your business, to help develop your personal life, and just to, I think, overall just be an amazing human being. So please help me welcome Dr. Alisha Wilkins. Hi, Alisha.
Hey, hi, and thank you so much, Darlene, for having me on your summit. I'm really excited to be here. Mm-hmm.
I am so glad that when I asked for you to be on that you said yes, because I know how much of an impact you made into my life just for showing up like as your true authentic self and being vulnerable and connecting. I see you connecting with so many women and engaging in hard conversations and just showing up as you truly are. So I wanted to have you on so we could talk about how this really shows up in your world and how you came to empower women the way that you do.
Gotcha.
So tell us a little bit about who Alisha is. Tell us.
Okay, sure. All right. Well, I actually grew up in Southeast San Diego. I'm actually a second generation San Diegan. And I was raised by a single mom. And I went to an inner city high school where when I was getting ready to graduate, I actually had been accepted at a number of colleges and was going to be the first person in my family to actually go to college. And I had a high school counselor whose responsibility it was to, provide guidance. However, he didn't necessarily feel like that students like me should go to a four-year college and thought that we should go to trade schools. But which is always an interesting experience. But in spite of that, I still moved forward and I went to college and obviously went even beyond that and decided to get my master's in industrial organizational psychology. So I have a master's in science and then moved on to getting my PhD. But I share that story with people because there was a point in time when I was ashamed of my history. I was ashamed of the fact that I grew up poor. I was ashamed of the fact that I grew up in the ghetto. I was ashamed of, the particular public school that I went to. And, there's this run rapper named Two Chainz that has this song called 4 a.m. It's probably not, it's a rapper. So, but he has this one verse in the song that says, if it wasn't for the struggle, then I wouldn't be me. And it's so poignant to my life experience. And I found that the more I share my life experience, the more I'm able to connect with people, the more people are like, wow, you're just like me. And it's funny because a lot of that I just equate it to race. And the more that I talk to different people, the more that I share my story, I'm realizing that there's so much commonality between me and other women, specifically, irrespective of where they grew up or, the culture they come from. And so that's, my little history of how, of becoming, I guess, as Michelle Obama would say, of becoming Alisha Wilkins.
Yes. And thank goodness you became her because, the world needs you in it for sure.
Thank you.
And I love that you share that, the struggles there for a lot of us. Like everybody has a story. Like each of us we all grew up in different households and some of us, with two parents, some with one, some with struggles, some did really well, but they had other challenges. So there's so many ways that we can connect that as women, especially and support each other and lift each other up. And so I love that you took that story, like how you were struggling and how like you rose through that and have been able to do so many amazing things and have so many accolades and accomplishments to go with that. So
thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I have to admit that one of my favorite things really is to hear about other people's stories. And that's where I really began to develop my comfort level in sharing my own, is, you know, hearing other people's stories and just recognizing that there's so much similarity between our lives. We're so much more similar than we are different. And it just really dovetail really nicely into the work that I'm doing with Hera Hub, because in addition to learning about the women that I work with, their personal stories, I get to learn about their businesses and some of the struggles that occur as a result of, you know, having the courage to just launch a business. And so, and I enjoy being a problem solver. And so, you know, so I like learning those stories and trying to figure out, you know, how can I help this individual in whatever aspect, whatever resource that they need or deficiency that they have, whether they're a really good, you know, empowerment coach, but you know, their business acumen in terms of financial is lacking. You know, I want to be able to provide the resources and the trainings to be able to help them to build that so that they can be a profitable and sustainable business. So, but yeah, I like hearing other people's stories too, in addition to sharing my own now.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like I love stories too. Like I think one of my favorite things to do is to ask, like I love doing the summit because I'm hearing all of these amazing stories, and it's so cool to see like how like the breadcrumbs lead to where you are today.
Oh yeah.
There's so many things that come up, and some of them are obstacles that we have to, you know, climb over and get through. And sometimes, you know, we get to celebrate with other people. But it's just like, it's a cool opportunity to hear, especially women, I feel like, to share their stories and like hear everything that they've gone through and how they've like become the victors. They're not playing the victim. They're actually, they're, you know, cheering each other on and supporting each other.
And I completely agree. Which is another reason why I think co-working spaces are so important. I think a lot of times when we are business owners and we're working from home, there can be some isolation in that, right? Because the home is, you know, well, first of all, it's, you know, typically where, you know, where you lay your head, and it's where you do your laundry, and it's where you do everything else, right? Yeah. And so to be able to get into that frame of, no, today I'm going to be productive with my business is a challenge in itself. But then the challenge of just, you know, being isolated. I mean, you know, when you have a question that you want to ask someone or something that you just want to, you know, run by someone, to be able to be in a space where you have other women who are entrepreneurs and freelancers that are working, and you can just say, hey, you know what do you think about this business name? You know, I was laughing at the fact that one of my founding members, well, actually two of my founding members, well, one of them helped the other individual come up with a new name for their business. And so I was like, wow, that would not have happened except for the fact that, you know, I was able to connect these two together, and they're from completely different industries. So to see that take place was pretty amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, actually.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, because I feel like we should give some backstory to this. We've mentioned Hera Hub twice now, but we didn't really get into that when I introduced you. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what Hera Hub is and what this new adventure that you're on?
Absolutely. So Hera Hub is a shared workspace and business accelerator for women-owned businesses. So what we provide is a professional environment for women who are running their own business to be able to work from, to be able to meet with clients. So there's meeting space, there's actual co-working space, and then the venue can actually be used as an event space during the evening and on the weekends by our members. For example, we have authors that, might have a wine and cheese book signing event on a weekend. And so that's part of it, but the other part is really the formation of the community. Each of the women that come in, have their own business and their own level of expertise, and we're able to work together and collaborate and connect one another with different people. And then there's the education and training that takes place, and that's one of the things that I really feel like makes Hair Hub unique, is that we want to get you on the door, but we also want to help our members to actually scale up and grow their businesses and to be profitable. So we offer, access to mentors that are expertise in the field. We offer, workshops and training programs and accountability, which is always a big thing, because when you're in your home isolated from everyone else, you have your to-do list and the things that you're supposed to, accomplish at some point in time. But when you're the only one who knows about it, it's really easy to just keep putting it on the back burner. But when you have another, group of women who know that, okay, you agreed that you were going to write one blog post a week, and we're expecting that you're going to follow through on that. It makes such a huge difference. It's almost like, I think of it as, like a gym, right? So Hair Hub is like a workspace that's in the same format, like concept of a gym, where, instead of buying your own equipment and, buying your treadmill, your weight set, you pay a membership, and all of that is available and accessible to you. Well, it's the same concept where, you pay a membership, and all of the, the shared workspace, the conference rooms are all available to you and for your use. But more importantly is the community. And that's what really sold me on this idea of Hair Hub. I actually went there for the first time, and I did not even know that it was a co-working space. I went there for a women in podcasting workshop. And it wasn't until I went to the second Women in Podcasting workshop when I happened to ask, one of the women that was there, hey, can you give me a piece, some paper? Because I had left my notepad in the car, and I didn't want to interrupt the speaker, and was trying to be polite. So I was like, hey, just kind of nudged the person next to me. I was like, hey, do you have any, notepads here? And she was like, I don't know. And I just thought it was so strange. I'm like, wait a minute, you work here, don't you, don't you know where the supply cabinet is, And so it was after that I found out that no, all these women who I thought were just this one cohesive, business, one cohesive department. Everyone was working for the same department. I thought it was one business. Everyone was working for the same department. We're actually all individual business owners, but there was so much synergy and collaboration and sisterhood, really. When I went there the first two times, I didn't even realize that it was an actual co-working space. I thought for sure with the relationships that these women had with one another, they had to be like co-workers or, working for the same person. So that was really what sold me on the concept, because not all co-working space have that. Some of them are very, just executive suites where, you just go into your office and close the door, and there is no, communication between you and the other people that work there. And I, wanted to provide something different. And I see this as much bigger than me, to be honest with you, which is why I'm so passionate about it. I see this as a movement in the Temecula Valley area. And I think that we're going to be doing some really big things. I think that there are going to be, we're going to be expanding, the growth of the businesses here in this area. And I'm just really, really excited to be at the helm of this. I think that we're going to look back 10 years from now and go, wow, look at all these women business owners in, the Temecula Valley. So I feel like it's so much bigger than me, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I love when you tell that story of the notepad and how you thought it was just like you were at like a typical office. And it's so true. I think when you walk into Hera Hub specifically, but even any co-working space or even just women that get together at a coffee shop to network and kind of co-work on their own together, there's something that happens that's so special when you bring that kind of energy together and you're able to collaborate and share ideas and hold each other accountable and just see somebody else who's doing the type of work that you're doing. Because I'm like myself and most of us that go to like a co-working space atmosphere, we work from home. We're solopreneurs. We might have a VA or two and we might bring people in for like contract jobs, but for the most part, like you're right, we're working at home and there's distractions every day, right? Like you mentioned, there's laundry, there's the messy kitchen from the kids before they left for school in the morning, or
there's like, the dog, for people who have pets.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can just get uninspired and demotivated and just stuck.
Yeah.
And when you're at home by yourself, like you can sit there sometimes for longer than you plan to, and it's okay to sit there for a little bit and stay in that moment. But it's also so empowering to like look over at somebody else who's sitting next to you on their laptop and they're doing their thing and they're focused and they're energized and like you can feel that energy. I feel like in space. So I just love that you foster that energy too, like where you want to bring these women together. So they are not able to just provide for their families, but they're also like making an impact in the city. And there's growth in the city that's happening as well because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And and then too, just based on my own personal experience, I know what it's like to not feel included. And so I also wanted to create a space that people felt included. You know what I mean? It wasn't, because you don't get clicks in Hera Hub, you don't get, group, that whole, mean girl group thing.
I was just going to say, it's like the Mean Girls movie.
Yes, exactly. And I think we all as women know what that's like. To some degree. And when I saw that, just that sense of community and collaboration, I was like, oh my goodness, this, I definitely want to bring that here to, the Temecula Valley area. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Tell us a little bit, because I know that you do other work as well for the state. Like for those of you that are new listening to me and Alisha, we live in California and we're in Temecula. So the Hera Hub that she is opening here is going to be in Temecula area. But she also does some amazing work in the state of California. And I definitely want to talk about this because I think the two play such a big role together.
Yes.
Of just, it shows like who you are. So tell us a little bit about like your work with the state.
Thank you. And I apologize. I failed to mention that, yes, this is the actual 8th location. The Temecula location will be the 8th location. There's 3 in San Diego. There's 1 in Phoenix, 1 in DC, and then 1 in Uppsala, Sweden. So when you do become a part of our sisterhood, you actually become a part of a now international sisterhood of women. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that. But yeah, it really, this work of empowering women, business owners, really, is definitely connected to some of the civic work that I do. I actually was appointed by the governor of California in 2014 to be commissioned on the status of women and girls, where I currently serve as the chair of that commission. And now I was recently reappointed for another 4 years by the new governor who became the new governor this year. And yeah, it's been such an inspiring experience. I mean, essentially what I'm doing is working on women's issues and working with communities of women and girls and essentially empowering them. One of the main issues that I've had an opportunity to work on is pay equity, because as I'm sure many of your listeners know, there is a huge pay gap between what men make and what women make. Women doing the same work typically make 70 cents to every dollar that a male makes. And so there's definitely a pay inequity that exists throughout our country. And so we've been working on that issue for a really long time. And we've developed some resources actually for not only, for women to be able to go to our website, and which is www.womenscommission.ca.gov. But there's the resources are for women who, perhaps may feel like they are being, discriminated against in terms of the wage inequities in their job, but also it's for businesses too. So if for businesses that want to actually do the right thing, it provides direction and accountability for businesses that want to make those changes in their business. And there's a number of large corporations that have signed on to the pledge to actually do internal assessments to determine whether or not they have that type of pay discrepancy in their organization. One of those is Airbnb, another is Apple. So there's about 18 different companies that have actually signed a pledge to do some internal work with us. So there's that. And then of course, engaging girls in STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, and math, because we want more of our young women to go into those fields.
So amazing that you do this work. I'm curious, how is it that you got into that type of work with the state? Like, was that something that you felt called to and you searched out, or did somebody hear you talk one day and they were like, oh, we need to recruit you in, or what was that like?
Well, I am glad that you're asking that question, because I get asked it a lot. And one of my passions actually is working with women to get them appointed to different boards and commissions. I mean, because there's such a lack of representation of women on boards and commissions, whether we're talking about at the federal level, at the state level, the local level as well. But basically, so my background, I used to do government relations work for a reproductive health care organization, where I part of the work that I did, in addition to the public affairs, government relations work, was the engaging underserved communities and advocacy work. So a lot of going to the Capitol, a lot of lobbying, a lot of work on health issues. And I was also going through a leadership program. And at the end of this leadership program, one of the things that they tasked all of the leaders to do was to consider applying for different boards and commissions, because they really felt like, there was a lack of representation of women on these boards and commissions, and we really need a woman's voice. And so I applied. I applied for it, and it really, and the reason why I enjoy, working with women who are interested in actually applying for boards and commissions is because I help to demystify the process, and it's a really empowering experience for a lot of women to realize that, wait a minute, this thing that felt so far off, impossible, could do. I'm like, no, if I did it, you can too, and so I, walk women through the process, the application process, and, recommendations on securing letters of recommendation, and just, in the interview process, once they get to that point. So, but yeah, that's another little, passion that I have, that I do on the side, that is more of my community service. The work of the commission itself is my community service, because I do amount of time on that work. But then too, my other community service really is trying to get more women appointed to these boards and commissions, because there's a lot of boys, but not not a lot of girls. And my thing is like, we represent 51% of the population, at least here in the state of California, and it's similar in other states. And so we need to be at the table when decisions are being made, because quite often we are the ones that have to live with those decisions. Our children are the ones that have to live with those decisions. So so I want, women to be at the table. So but that's the work of the commission.
And we definitely need more women sitting at those tables or at the table. So so if somebody's listening and they're like thinking like, oh, that would be cool to like sit at the table and like help make state decisions and like make an impact on what's going on locally for them. What do you tell somebody who's like intrigued, but they are a little bit scared to actually go out and even apply or put themselves into it?
So one of the things that I typically do with people is I'll do kind of like a brainstorm where I'll have them, put their name in the middle, and then, talk about all the different hats that they wear. So let's say, I am a PTA mom, or I am a football mom, or, I, do fundraising for my church. And I have women do this because oftentimes we think that we're not qualified for something when we've been doing that thing in some aspect of our lives, that perhaps it wasn't something that was career related, but you helped the PTA raise 10 grand. So guess what? You are, you do fundraising, you know what I mean? You do donor relations, you know what I mean? It's like, and so that's one of the things that I do, which is another reason why, I mean, and it's my niche. I mean, I love listening to people and their stories. So so that's usually the first thing I do is I'll sit down with them and help them to recognize their hidden talents and skills and their knowledge, so that they feel empowered to then go to, either, a federal website, or go to the governor's website to begin to look at what is available. Because that's the other thing. There's so many things that are available. A great example of that is I do, like, a woman that I worked with. While she was a professional woman, she also was the mother of a young man with autism. And she ended up getting appointed to a commission because they wanted to have the voice of a parent who had a child with autism. And so don't overlook all the other hats that you wear, is typically my advice. And what I usually do when I'm working with a woman who's interested in a board or commission is the first step. And then the second step is, okay, now let's see what's available that you might be interested in, so that's usually what I do.
That's awesome. And I love that, like, you connect it that way with them and like sit down and have them brainstorm like what they've done in the past, because even as like entrepreneurs in general, like sometimes we discredit like our past careers, or when we volunteered for associations, or for our, like you said, like PTA, or on the board of the football team for your son, like whatever those things are. And those things they count. Like, and we like this, we stuff them into our purse and we like throw them aside, and we're like, no, that doesn't count. That was just me volunteering, helping do this. But when you look at like the big picture of it, like you have like fundraised, you've hosted huge events at schools.
Exactly.
So many things.
You've coordinated travel for, 10 football players that needed to get somewhere whose parents weren't available to take them. Absolutely.
And we can't forget that we have those.
Yes.
I love that you help like pull those out and like use them for stepping into like that next level leader.
Yes.
So important.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. And before we kind of start wrapping things up, I'm super curious if you could share like maybe 2 or 3 tips that you find are a lot of the audience is, entrepreneurs that are working from home, they're growing their business and they're doing all these things. What would be like your top 1 or 2 tips that if somebody's just struggling with feeling connected in their community or getting engaged with other entrepreneurs even in their local area, what are like the first things that you recommend for them to do just to kind of put themselves out there and get out of their house a little bit?
You know what? I recommend just with the advent of technology and social media, it's so much easier now to find like-minded individuals to connect with. And so I would recommend like going onto your Facebook and doing, some sort of search for, business women in your area and beginning to just get out, get out of your, your house and the isolation of the house and begin to just go to some of those networking events so you can begin to share some of your struggles with other women or share some of your triumphs with other women who are going through this same thing quite often. So definitely, utilizing social media, and then, the referrals in terms of, if you already have an existing group of women that are doing things in the area, ask them, what particular groups are you connecting with? So, social media, and then just relying on your existing relationships to connect with other people. And the third thing is, hey, make your own. One of the things that I absolutely adore Darlene for is the fact that she has this book club that's specifically for women business owners. And the type of books that we read are those type of development books for us, the books that we quite often will have on our list of, eventually I'm going to get to this, but because it's a business book, and usually very interesting business books. So thank you for that. But or start something on your own. So those are like the 3 tips that I would give to someone who is trying to connect with other people.
Yes, no, those are amazing. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, I'm going to ask some rapid fire questions to kind of get to know Alisha a little bit better. But I'm super curious if you have a morning routine, and if you do, what is it?
Yeah, I do, that I try to stick with, but as motherhood, even though my son is 23 years old and about to graduate from college, I still, get those phone calls where it's like, I had a plan today and now it's all, topsy-turvy. But when I do have a plan, when I do, abide by my plan, I usually like to, I do Bikram. So I practice Bikram yoga, which is hot yoga, where you do yoga in a room that's set at 105 degrees. I know it's crazy, right? But when my day is going well and I'm able to, I will, go and do that first thing in the morning if I don't have any other conflicts. That's my morning routine. And as crazy as it sounds, to be sitting in a room for 90 minutes and 105 degrees, there is something that is so mentally clearing about doing that. And there are times when I get more inspiration and more direction from being in that class than I do sitting at home, just in my head so much that I can't figure out, what's my next move going to be. For some reason, just being in that environment will kind of just clear the fog out of my brain and just kind of help me to, and it's so funny because it's like, there's times when I'm like, oh man, I wish I had a notepad in this class so I can, write down some of the things that are now that I was having difficulty figuring out what my next step was. And then I can, go ahead and, do that. And on days when I'm not able to do that, I at least try to read for about 15 minutes. So yeah, I try to do something for myself, but it doesn't always happen.
I love that, because you're so right. Like especially with kids, no matter how old they are, like we worry as moms and we want to make sure they're taken care of, so it can throw us off. And I love that you use that as like a self-care practice for yourself, just to like decompress and allow yourself to like dump all those ideas, because I think it's so true, especially with exercise. Like I feel like I get so many great ideas, and like I have to have my phone next to me, and I open up the note tab and I'll like write things down, like just like enough of it, because if I don't write like at least the start of whatever I was thinking about, it's gone, and I'm like, where'd it go? I had this great idea.
I've had those moments too.
And you mentioned that you like to read sometimes, and this goes perfectly to our next question. So I'm curious, what is your favorite book that you feel like has given you like the most personal growth?
So it's funny you ask that, because I'm actually reading a book right now that has been life altering. I know that I feel like the question was meant for me to think about in the past, but I'm actually reading this great book by Minda Hart that's called The Memo, and it's really about women, particularly women of color, and being able to secure a seat at the table, and just different things that we wouldn't know, because we're quite often times the first person to have a corporate job in our family, or have a white collar job in our family, and it's like a little tips on that. And I mean, it's intended for women of color. However, the author is very disclosing about the fact that I think that it's a great book for anyone, because this is really about sisterhood, right? And there are different ways that people who aren't, necessarily women of color can actually, review this, and then, be able to help their sister out when they see them, with, going through a particular challenge on an issue that they're experiencing. So, yeah, that's Minda Hart, The Memo.
That sounds amazing. I wrote it down. You said it was called the Memo, correct? I just want to make sure I wrote it right. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. So definitely we'll all check that one out as well.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, if you were to look back on your life and like when you started your career, what would be like one thing that you would tell yourself if you were starting over now that you wish you would have known back then?
I would have told myself that you are capable, that I mean, really just encouraging myself to take a chance, really, to go ahead and take a chance, especially with regards to my career. I was always really kind of skittish, even though I feel like I've accomplished a lot. I was always very, very calculated and skittish about doing things and making decisions. And which is why, this Hera Hub is such a big, big leap for me, is because I'm like kind of like Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's like, I'm scared of everything, but I'm more scared of what'll happen if I don't do something. And so, but yeah, I would probably, just encourage myself to, hey, you can do this. You can do this. Alisha, you don't have to wait for perfection to occur before you make that leap. You can actually do this. So just move forward and do it. And if you fall, it's okay. Yeah. One of my cousins, he's a really good. We go to the skating ring. So my cousins get together every once in a while, and we'll go to the skating ring. And I'm not a good skater. And he gave me the best advice. He was like, just go ahead and fall. Just go ahead and fall. And his point was, once I fell, I wouldn't be so scared of falling. And then that would actually give me the courage to be able to skate. And I did that. And I was like, it wasn't that big of a deal. I just got back up and kept on going, you know what I mean? And so, yeah. So sometimes that, fear of falling can keep us from doing things that we should take a chance on. So
Yeah. Such a great lesson, because you're right. Like, we have to show up courageous and be okay with falling sometimes or doing things the wrong way. But I think like the important thing is like looking at, like, it's not necessarily a failure if you learn from it. So taking that, like turning it around and saying like, what did I learn from the situation? Like, that just makes you so much better. So like when you fall the one time and you get back up, like you learned that, like, you scraped your knee, but you didn't die. Like, you're still good.
Exactly. Exactly.
So great. All right. And the last question I have for you, just to kind of pull everything together for the summit, is I'm curious what you think, or what does attract and stand out mean to you?
Attraction and standing out to me means being open and authentic about who you are, because I firmly believe that I have been able to attract like-minded women, women who are also just as passionate about community and just as passionate about empowering other women, because I am willing to be vulnerable and really share my story. And like often will attract like, birds of a feather kind of flock together.
Yeah.
And so that's, when I think of attraction, that's what I think of, is just me being willing to be vulnerable and open. And the fact that people will just come as a result of that. People will be attracted to you as a result of that. So that's what I try to do.
Awesome. I love that answer too, like birds of a feather that flock together. I'm glad I'm in your flock. I'm just saying.
Oh, me too. Me too. Trust me, me too. I think about my flock all the time, like they're my babies.
Right? It's such a beautiful thing just to have those connections and those people that you can go to and ask for advice or help you get unstuck, or just laugh with and have fun with, and like be silly and not have to be like so serious all the time, right?
Exactly. Yes. And we have fun together. So I appreciate that, whether we're dancing to a strobe light or, just actually sitting down and getting some work done. I really appreciate my vlog. So
So amazing. I've had so much fun talking to you during the interview. But before we go, I know you have a free gift for everybody for being a part of the summit. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. So as I was mentioning to you earlier, I get asked by a lot of women, especially when they find out that I am a governor appointee, how did you do that? What's the process? And so I love to demystify that process by providing them tips. And so what I have is a list of tips that are going to be available for women to be able to download on my website on the process, on specific things that you can do to secure an appointment or an appointment on a commission or a board. So that's my little gift to everyone out there. And it's been great. I'm really excited to have had this opportunity. And if you'd like to reach out to me, please do so. I'm on Facebook. You can reach me at Hera Hub Temecula on Facebook, and or on Instagram, Alisha.wilkins.619, 619 as in the area code for San Diego, if that helps you remember. Alisha.wilkins.619 for my Instagram. And then, of course, if you would like to go to our Hera Hub website, you can go to herahub.com/Temecula. That's TEMECULA. But I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alisha, for being a guest on and just sharing so much great information for how we can connect and get involved in our communities and connect and just grow and foster those relationships with other people.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.